Okay, let's just dive right into this explainer on cognitive scientist Steven Pinker's completely mind-bending exploration of how our shared awareness literally holds society together. I mean, if you've ever wondered why some open secrets suddenly just explode into massive public scandals, or why we all politely pretend not to notice someone's super embarrassing moment, well, you're dealing with the invisible foundational architecture of human interaction. We're going to unpack Pinker's fascinating concept when everyone knows that everyone knows, and look at how this single, kind of dizzying idea explains the mysteries of money, power, and honestly just everyday life.
Think you know what others think about what you're thinking? It turns out you're probably wrong. Jonah Berger hit the nail on the head there. It perfectly frames the dizzying puzzle of human interaction we're about to unravel. We spend so much of our lives operating on assumptions about what's going on inside the heads of the people around us. But as Pinker argues, the true mechanics of how our minds actually sync up are way more complex and, honestly, a lot more fascinating than we usually give them credit for.
To really get to the bottom of this, we need to ask a surprisingly simple question about a famous fairy tale. Because believe it or not, the answer reveals the invisible glue of human civilization. Think back to Hans Christian Andersen's classic story. The emperor is parading down the street, completely naked. Every single person in the crowd has eyes, right? They can all clearly see he's wearing absolutely nothing. So when the little boy points and shouts that the emperor has no clothes, is he really providing new information? Like, is he breaking some massive news? Well, no. Everyone already possessed that private piece of knowledge. So what actually changed? Section 1. The Emperor's Naked Truth. By blurting out the truth, the little boy didn't change what people knew. Instead, he fundamentally altered their relationship to the emperor. He ensured that they now knew that everyone else knew, totally exploding the social status quo. Section 2. 3 levels of knowing. To really understand why this happens, we need to break down how our minds perceive shared information. Because in a way, knowing is basically a form of seeing. Imagine a scenario with a physical barrier between people. This is private knowledge. Everyone in the crowd might know the emperor is naked, but no one knows if the person right next to them knows it too. They share the same reality in their own heads, sure, but because of that invisible wall, they're completely isolated. If you're standing in that crowd, you don't dare laugh. You might be the only one who thinks he's naked, and you just look like a total fool. Now, let's step it up to reciprocal knowledge. Imagine you're seeing the other person looking, but it's through the anonymity of a keyhole. You peek through and you see your neighbor watching the naked emperor. Okay, so you now know that they know. But there's a catch. Because you're hiding behind that keyhole, they don't know that you are watching them. You still don't have the mutual confidence to point and laugh together, right? Because your neighbor might think they're the only one in on the secret. And finally, we reach common knowledge. This is an open state of awareness where everyone knows that everyone else knows, which empowers people to finally coordinate and act. The barriers, they're completely gone. You see the emperor, you see your neighbor seeing the emperor, and you see your neighbor looking right back at you seeing them. This is the absolute magic of the little boy shouting in the street. It instantly removes all those keyholes and walls. It drags the truth right out into the open, and only in this state can the crowd confidently rise up and laugh together. Section 3. Escaping the infinite loop. So, how does our brain actually process this state of common knowledge without completely short-circuiting? Because if you really sit down and think about the strict logic of common knowledge, it gets incredibly messy, incredibly fast. It's not just I know that you know. It has to go way deeper than that. If we strictly followed game theory logic, our minds would be trapped in this dizzying, infinite hall of mirrors of thoughts within thoughts, which, obviously, can't fit inside a finite human skull. It's like, I know that you know, that I know, that you know, that I know. By the 3rd or 4th layer, our working memory is completely maxed out. No human being is actually walking around calculating infinite logical loops when someone tells a joke at a dinner party. So Pinker asks the million-dollar question, how are we actually doing this so effortlessly? The crucial point here is that our brains cleverly bypass that infinite loop by simply recognizing when an event is universally out there. It acts almost like a dedicated sense organ for public reality. We don't sit there and calculate the layers. Instead, we have this built-in intuition. When a statement is made loudly in a crowded room, or an event happens in broad daylight for everyone to see, our brain just slaps a massive public label on it. We instantly feel that the information is now part of a shared environment. It's a remarkably elegant cognitive shortcut that saves us from total mental exhaustion. Section 4. Language as common knowledge.
Now, this built-in radar for shared reality isn't just for fairy tales. It is the absolute foundation of how we speak to one another. We open our mouths, make specific sounds, and we just expect the person sitting across from us to instantly understand exactly what we mean. But Pinker points out that grammar and logic alone aren't nearly enough to make this work.
Every single word we use is a linguistic convention. And what that means is it only works because of a massive, unspoken agreement spanning literally millions of minds. Think about the word awful. It used to mean full of awe, right? Now it means something terrible. There is absolutely no logical reason why the sound pepper means a black spice and salt means a white crystal. Honestly, they could easily have been swapped centuries ago. It only works because of convention. Think about it like a social contract. You only ask for salt instead of pepper because you have absolute faith that the listener shares your definition. And here's the kicker, that they know that you know they share it. If you suspected for even a second that your dinner date thought the word salt meant pepper, and that they thought you thought salt meant pepper, well, the entire system just falls apart. You'd end up passing the wrong shaker. Every single sentence we speak is this beautiful, synchronized dance of common knowledge. To speak is an incomparable act of faith. What proof do we have that when I say mouse, you do not think of a stop sign? As the poet Craig Morgan teacher beautifully captures with those words, opening our mouths requires a massive leap of faith in common knowledge. We don't have hard proof. We just intuitively trust that our entire community has opted into this shared reality. And what's truly mind-blowing is how early in life we actually develop this intuition. It's not something we pick up in high school. It seems to be hardwired right into our cognitive development. Amazingly enough, cognitive studies show that even 3-year-olds instinctively understand this boundary. Researchers actually taught toddlers a completely made-up word, meth, for a dumpling press. When a total stranger walked into the room, the 3-year-olds automatically assumed the stranger knew what a meth was. They inherently understood that language is a public convention. But, and this is fascinating, when the researchers taught the toddlers a private fact, like, my cat likes to play with this object, they did not expect the stranger to know it. Even at age 3, we have a radar for what's common knowledge and what's private knowledge. Section 5. Why we actually socialize, which brings us to the grand evolutionary payoff of common knowledge, and really why human beings formed societies in the first place. For a long time, evolutionary biologists have puzzled over why humans are so uniquely social. Like, why do we build massive cities, form huge companies, and collaborate with total strangers? Well, for decades, biologists focused heavily on cooperation and reciprocal altruism to explain socialization. But Pinker points out that we've completely ignored the power of coordination, which relies purely on this shared common knowledge. Think of cooperation like a classic prisoner's dilemma. I'll scratch your back if you scratch mine. It involves personal cost, you gotta keep score of who cheated who. It's a lot of work. But coordination? Coordination is totally different. It's about making mutually beneficial choices that only work if we are both on the exact same page at the exact same time. It doesn't require altruism, it just requires common knowledge. And that changes everything. Our ability to coordinate around common knowledge is exactly what allows us to build economies, form governments, and navigate the complex web of our personal relationships. Think about money. A dollar bill only has value because it's common knowledge that we all agree it has value. Or think about political revolutions. A dictator can hold on to power just as long as the citizens' hatred of the regime remains private knowledge. But the very second a protest happens in a public square, that hatred becomes common knowledge. People realize they have the numbers, they coordinate, and the regime falls. It's the exact same mechanism behind stock market bubbles, the sudden rise of a viral fad or cancel culture, or even the awkward, unspoken rules of dating and professional etiquette. Since common knowledge holds such immense power to completely upend the status quo, I'm going to leave you with a question to explore in your own life. Because once you understand that the difference between an open secret and common knowledge is literally the difference between keeping the peace and sparking a revolution, you start to see the invisible lines drawn in every single meeting room, family dinner, and social media feed. We often go to great lengths, using polite euphemisms and just pretending not to notice things, specifically to prevent private knowledge from becoming common. So, what is the naked emperor in your world? And what would happen if someone finally pointed it out?